So I have been fortunate to work with a lot of different operators that are actually doing okay and that are doing well. And we'll have a whole separate webinar on this and blow these out a little bit. But the ones that have done well, after your PPP's gone and there's no more money there, and hopefully there'll be another round coming up, and there's the HEROES Act that's just been reintroduced, and it's been cut back by $800 billion, so it's a little more attractive. Two main things in that act that we were particularly interested in is the Restaurant Act of 2020 is in there, the $120 billion fund, as well as the new round of PPP. That's a couple $100 billion. Reusing the money that was not used last time and adding about 60 billion to it. So we're very hopeful for that act, but there's some sticking points in there that might make it a little bit difficult to get through. So let's assume for a moment that there is no more PPP coming, because I think that's the way to move forward. It's the only way to move forward. So the first thing that all of these strong operators have in common is they have high owner direction. When things fell apart, even though they may have larger organizations, the owners came in and gave straight direction as to what was going to happen. And in retrospect, if you think about companies that have multiple units, the reason that they were really successful in the beginning is because they had owners that were really involved in everything. So the first characteristic is to be really involved in direction. And direction is really another word for telling people what to do and the way it's going to be. And some people might call it micromanagement, but what I've seen through the most successful companies that we've worked with through this span is their owners are extremely involved. They didn't just leave it up to their team. They got involved from the get-go and they've stayed involved. The second characteristic is they have strong GMs in their locations. And this is a great time to bolster your team. So don't be afraid if you've got a weak team to bolster that up. You need to have a strong GM in your location in order for you to be able to operate well, especially if you've got more than one location. But the GM has the ability to kind of scale up and scale down. As my colleague said, during the recession, everybody works one level down as well as their own job. So it's important for the GM to be a strong GM so that they can move down and they can stay at a higher level as things improve. Third area is they can pivot at every turn. And this is key right now because the rules continue to change. We used to have 50% in occupancy, and now it's 50% with the same family or the same household indoors. We're starting to see, outdoor is going to start waning a little bit when we have more rainy days. So we need to be able to pivot indoors. So the operators that have done really well have pivoted at every turn, whether it's the beginning where they did a lot of takeout and meal kits, whether now it's indoor, outdoor dining, converting the outdoor space, getting it ready for the rainy season. In fact, some even into the winter to try to turn their patios into 4-season patios, but the restrictions of really 2 walls. So these strong operators have really pivoted at every turn. They've also raised expectations. While excuses are easy to come by, the strongest operators have said we need more out of everybody. And I have always held to the belief that our industry has not been particularly productive. And as we've gone through this, we've had the opportunity to optimize hours and increase people's productivity. And raising expectations has been a thread that's run through all these successful companies because they have held their people accountable and they've asked for more out of people. And guess what? They've gotten more out of people. So the next one is to execute flawlessly. And I've got plenty of stories recently from going to restaurants where the execution just seems to be sloppy. And something as simple as full hands in, full hands out just seems to be getting a little sloppy in our industry. And those that are doing very well are really tight. They're executing at an extremely high level. And guess what their number one focus is? Even with everything else they're doing great, we have to execute better. We have to execute more flawlessly. We have to do better on our execution. So whether that's making sure that you're packing the bags correctly for it to go order, that you're watching your Yelps and what other social is out there, that you're executing with speed and you're executing with precision. That is a common factor among those that are doing very well right now. The next is to be visible. So this is a time more than any other to be out there and being visible, to be doing good, to be supporting the community, but to also be pushing your message out that you're here, you're raising your hand, you're saying, I haven't gone away, I'm open. Here's when I'm open, and here's what we have going on here. So being visible, coming up with different ways to be visible, not avoiding the advertising type of scenario, social media, making sure that you're remaining active, because as things begin to reopen, there's more and more noise, there's more and more operators that are out there, and those of you that have remained strong through this need to continue to push your voice out. Before all of this happened, we were up against an industry essentially that was competing against itself. It had so much growth that in especially urban areas, we were squeezing everybody with a little bite here and a little bite there and a little bite here and a little bite there, to where margins were eroding, sales were declining or flat. And so as we went through this current crisis that we're in, we've seen more businesses kind of stay closed, and the strong have started raising up again. And it is time to be visible more than ever. The next is to have strong systems. Now's the time to study your data, to make sure that your engineering is correct around your menu, to make sure you're selling the items that you want to sell, that you're purchasing things correctly, that you're not just accepting higher prices on items. We've seen a lot of that, a lot of pressure on margin coming out of the provider side. A lot of that has to do with packing plants closing and things like that. But working your systems, looking at your information every day, every minute, how did labor go? Being really disciplined. Now's the time to be more disciplined than ever. I've always been a big fan of weekly inventory. I seem to lose that argument more often than not. People do it every period or every month, whatever fiscal calendar you're on. But now's the time that you really need to watch your inventory, even on a weekly basis, because every dollar counts. The larger your sales are, waste as a percentage of sales kind of diminishes. But when you're slower and your sales are down, waste as a percentage of sales go up, and you start seeing your costs creep up. So now's the time for you to really work your systems, to really to make sure that your checklist, your opening and closing checklist, to make sure that safety is going on at a high level, that cleanliness is top of mind, that you're engineering your menus, that you're purchasing great product, that you're watching your numbers on labor every day. Even though you're trying to get people hours, you still need to manage those metrics, because if you don't, you're going to lose money. And right now is not a good time to lose money as you kind of go into the slower time of the year for a lot of operators. We're not going to see a lot of private dining this year. So in fine dining, where we've traditionally kind of lived on larger parties through the holidays, it's going to be tight this year. We don't know what it's going to look like. Perhaps there's going to be a little bit of relaxation, perhaps not. So we can't bet on that. We have to bet on what we have in our hand right now and operate at the top optimum level that we can now, and that's really working your systems and making sure that they're strong. And if they're not strong, strengthen them. Now's a good time for that. We've got a little bit of extra time. A lot of people aren't operating at the same hours that they were before, so strengthen your systems if you feel like there's a system that's weak. And be scrappy. Being scrappy is doing whatever you need to do. As Howard Schultz said at the beginning of this, just earn one more dollar every day. That's what we're after, is make another dollar every day. What are the things, the scrappy things that need to be done in order for you to survive through this whole thing? And not just survive, but to thrive and to transform. This is really about transforming your business. Things won't be the same for a while. So you've got to transform your business, whether that's developing another brand and putting it in your location and doing a ghost kitchen out of there, whether that's pivoting to a different type of service model from full service to limited service, redoing your facility to be more streamlined and efficient. Now's the time to be scrappy. Get back in there. That goes back to number one, where we talk about high owner direction. Get scrappy. Then have an ownership mentality from top to bottom. Had a meeting the other day, it's a great meeting, and one of the GMs basically said, I've got to treat this company like it's my dollar that's going out of my pocket. And it's really helped me to change the way I think about this business, because every dollar that we don't make is a dollar out of the owner's pocket, and that dollar may not be there tomorrow. So I've got to have an ownership mentality around everything and be on the side of the owners. I've got to be in lockstep with the owners to make sure that every dollar that we get, we push through, that we can have the maximum flow through. And the last thing that I've seen in common among all of these is there is hospitality. And going into this crisis, I was observing a little bit of a lost hospitality, that we were kind of losing our step a little bit on the hospitality side, and now's the time to get it back. And the operators that are doing very well are warm, they're welcoming, and they're thankful. And my understanding is some of the guests haven't exactly been accommodating, that they've been a little grumpy as they've kind of come out of their hiding spaces for the last 6 months. But remember, our job in hospitality is to restore the guest to wholeness. We take people that are tired, hungry, grumpy, and we restore them back to themselves. We restore them to their normal state, in fact, an elevated state. So be sure that hospitality is at the very top. Whether you are limited service or full service fine dining, hospitality is at the top of the list of these great operators that are doing well through this. And doing well is a relative term. That's not like sales are up 200%. So doing well is a relative term, that making it through and thriving is really what these characteristics are all about. So pick one or more of these and put them into practice as soon as you can. If you see any holes, these are the common characteristics that the great companies coming through this are exhibiting.